Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain heads to Snetterton, Norfolk for round number 4 of the championship here. My name is Connery Maddock. I'll be one of your commentators for this afternoon. I'm joined by the one, the only Mr. Paul Smith on the coverage as well. Drivers are just about getting out there to set their first of their qualifying laps here to set the grid for race number 1. We had another fantastic race last time out at Donington for round number 3. Again, another last lap situation amongst the leaders to decide it between themselves. And Paul, you're on the call for that one. It seemed like it happened twice in a row.
Well, I mean, Kevin Ellis Jr. and Sebastian Job keep on giving us these tremendous last lap races, and long may it continue, I say. It promises to be some good races. Snetterton, though, it's a little bit of a different circuit again. It's quite narrow around here, so overtaking may be difficult.
Yeah, that's going to be one of those things that we're just talking about throughout the course of the race, and we'll have to of course, see if there's any great side-by-side battling coming up. But there's the schedule. We are getting towards the halfway point of the season now. We're on round number 4. Next round, we actually head across the channel to France and do our little special event race at Le Mans with double points, 45-minute race, so a lot to look forward to in terms of that particular event. And then at the very end of the season, we head back to Donington Park, we head back to Silverstone, and then we finish off the season at Brands Hatch GB at the very start of March there. So things starting to be a little bit more settled here in this one as we get a better idea of who is where in terms of the championship order, and many drivers setting themselves up for a championship challenge coming into Brands Hatch. There's the schedule for today. We are in qualifying right now, 20 minutes of open qualifying, but no longer than that, considering qualifying ends immediately once the time expires, so the drivers will not be able to finish their laps. We have 2 25-minute races here with a 10-minute break in between. The top 6 in the results for race 1 will be swapped around, so it's a top 6 reverse grid for race number 2. And it always delivers some excitement, Paul.
It certainly does, and we can see how the championship has really tightened up again at the head of the standings. And people who watched last week will note that that Sebastian Job didn't actually pull away. There were some post-race penalties applied, so yeah, Sebastian just getting clawed back. He was a 21-point lead before the start of last week. This week, though, he's only got a 10-point lead over Kevin Ellis Jr.
Yeah, so the championship is very much as tight as ever for those top 3 spots especially. Of course, you mentioned that some of the penalties have come into effect. We even have a qualifying ban for this event for Simeon Lynch due to going over a total 30 seconds of time penalty. So he'll have to sit qualifying out and start at the very back of the grid. But yeah, there's the top 10 in terms of the point standings, and now we head to see where, well, the views of all the drivers, shall we say, in just a couple of moments. But we've got track map up. There's the Snetterton layout. We are on the 200 layout this time around, so it's basically the outer circuit. So we have no infield sort of conversion going on there, as they'll be just racing around the outside of the circuit. Of course, you've got that run in towards turn 1 of Riches, then into Montreal as your tight turn 2 hairpin, which is what we've highlighted on the screen for you there, and then down the very, very long indeed Bentley Straight, where we can see a lot of slipstreaming of these cars to perhaps have a look into turn 5, but that's a very tricky predicament indeed. Then into Bombhole, and then you've got Coram, that very long right-hander before you get to the final corner of Murray's. Just that left-hand flick, getting yourself onto the start-finish straight, and then it's a run to the start-finish line.
Yeah, I would say this is the best layout of the circuit in my opinion. It's one that I think a lot of the drivers prefer as well, rather than the tight and technical infield section. But you know, you get tremendous views. It's rather flat. It's an old airfield here, so these drivers, they won't have to deal with undulations that much here today.
Yeah, basically almost as flat as a pancake. Of course, you've got Bombhole, which is that big old dip in the track where you can I guess in real life you can really feel that sort of weight transfer. But these drivers, of course, unless they're in a motion sim rig, they won't be feeling that, so it won't be a very big concern for them. We've got a couple of minutes of qualifying done already. We've had the first couple of laps start to get onto the board, shall we say, and actually it's Bart Horston that's setting the early pace here in qualifying, with Jamie Fluke right behind him. So things are looking pretty close at the very top of the order at the moment, and well, qualifying here is going to be pretty important, Paul, especially considering, like you said, how difficult it is to overtake here.
Yeah, qualifying will be crucial, as we'll see, and I'm sure we'll get to see the drivers working hard as well on screen. We're fortunate, aren't we, Connery, that we get to see some of the drivers on board as well from their rigs. In fact, here they are up on screen, nicely timed. It's almost like I'd segued that beautifully. But there you go, there's some of the drivers. Kevin Ellis Jr., you've got Craig Williams, Jamie Fluke, Josh Thompson and Sebastian Job at the bottom, your championship leader. So those are the 5 drivers, giving us a view of what they go through whilst they're in their sim rigs.
Yeah, and it just gives us a new insight into what the drivers are actually doing, because it's so easy to have a look at what's going on track and just see these virtual cars going around a virtual track. But once you see the drivers trying to work the wheel, it adds another human element to everything going on, which sim racing does need from time to time. But speaking of virtual cars going around virtual circuits, there they are out there now in open qualifying, getting the slipstreaming done as well between teammates especially, which will really help them down the Bentley Straight and of course the pit straight as well. You can get a decent amount of time by working together.
Certainly can, although there is no teammates when it comes to the actual races, because you want to be the one at the head of the field. You want to be the one winning that. So, yeah, these drivers heading through Coram and into Murray's, the final corner. And it's important to get the run out of that corner, because that carries your speed all the way down the centre straight in towards another lap. So there's Jamie Fluke there, number 49, just getting the slipstream from one of his compatriots from the Apex Racing team in John Robertson. But as I mentioned, all these drivers, they're all out there fighting because it is an individual championship here. There's no teams championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, when it comes down to it, it is driver versus driver. So no matter if you're from the same team, at the end of the season, if you're all vying for the same championship position, well, the gloves are going to be off indeed. But here, for now, in qualifying, they are working as a mutual benefit, shall we say. So we'll have John Robertson towing Jamie Fluke around for the moment, and then at some point later on in the session we'll have Fluke be the car in front, and Robertson will be the car getting the tow off of him. So that's how the teams are working together, even though there are technically no teams in terms of the championship here today. Yeah, absolutely. It's we've seen a couple of changes around in the qualifying order already. Graham Carroll going to the top of the timing screens at the moment. The only driver in the 108s at the moment. Everyone else in the 1 minute 9 seconds region. But the Rebel Racing Esports driver going to the top early, and Sebastian Job in second place as his teammate as well. So it looks like the RBR guys are really putting in a good effort here in qualifying, at least early on, but we've still got about 11 minutes of the session to go. Yeah,
absolutely. It's great to see Bart Horston up there, though. It's really seems to be suiting him, does this car, this setup. Of course, fixed setup for this championship, so there's no sort of setup shenanigans going on here. But Horston doing a good job in third place. Now, will he be heading back to pit road, or will this be the start of a lap? This is going to be the start of a lap, or at least the end of a lap here. So come down the centre straight and across the line. Starts another lap. Does not improve his lap time with that one. Only about 0.4 of a second off, but you can see on board then, we've gone through Richards then, into Montreal, heavy braking zone. Now you either hug the apex or go for a late apex to open up turn number 3, because you've got to carry that speed out of that left-hander all the way down the Bentley Straights here. To see the bridge in front of you, use that as a way of measuring where your braking is. It's a tricky braking zone because you're braking and turning at the same time through Brundle into Nelson. Tight right-hander. Going to be very tricky to make any moves there. This is Bomb Hole. Wasn't actually created by a bomb, but they call it that because of the depression in the road. And then through. Coram once again tightens up on you at the end here before then Murray's flick it left, get on the power, use as much of the road and the curb on the right hand side, and then we'll see across the line, does Bart improve his lap time here? And the answer will be no, but it is a 109.4.
Yeah, so still a good effort, although with the lack of any tow from any of the cars ahead, he's going to struggle to be able to get up into those top times. So you can understand that in that respect, but still plenty of time left. 9 minutes, 20 seconds left to go here. I'm seeing Jordan Weeks and Kieran Harrison drafting together. This is another drafting situation as well between Sebastian Job and Graham Carroll. As it's Sebastian Job now, that's the driver that's getting the tow off the back of his teammate. So I think for that initial portion of the session, Job was towing Carroll around, and now it's the other way around.
Yeah, they've got out of it a little bit through Bomb Hole, so they're trying to find themselves space. And this is one of the things that's in the regulations here. You've got to find your space in qualifying. It is an open qualifying, which we're not used to seeing in a lot of series, including the World Championship, which took part yesterday. And so you've really got, it's a different technique to qualifying when it's an open qualifying, isn't it, Connor? You've really got to find that space, work with a teammate or somebody else if you can. Oh, big sideways moment out of the left-hander there. That's going to cost a tenth or two as they go down the Bentley straight. He's keeping on it, but with 8 1/4 minutes remaining, there's Carroll getting out the way. So Job will be carrying on this lap, trying to set a time. They've got a plan that they're working to up over the grass again. This is not going to be an improvement at all.
I don't think it is either, but he's going to complete the lap regardless. Now coming through Coram, very long right-hander with those left side tyres really get butchered as the load just continues all the way through, and then you got to flick the car into Murray's corner for the end of this qualifying lap. Sebastian Job drive to the line. Let's see if it's any improvements. It's probably not going to be. Yeah, he's a 109.1 there, I believe it was. So still off the mark when it comes to the qualifying time his teammate was able to set. Carroll's still the only driver in the 108s at the moment. But I think Job will be able to recover this one somewhat. Still has a good handful of laps to go. So he can even bring it on towards pit lane and get back out there with for another attempt with Carroll with the tow. Yeah,
we're still getting quick times in qualifying here. Isaac Price has set a personal best. So too has Blair Mann, moving Blair up into the top 10. So that's good to see Blair up there challenging in the top 10 in this field. We've seen a little bit of a mix here at the front of the field this round. Once again, Jamie Moon's up in the top 10 as well. Jamie had a good good qualifying to start with last week before then others set quicker times. But we're getting a little bit of a mix here. In fact, Kevin Ellis Jr. What a time to the head of the field, 108.984.
Well, you can see it's all a gaggle of Apex cars out there. It's a 3-car train of them. So Kevin Ellis Jr. was using the double slipstream to his advantage there, and he's still continuing on with it as well, and he might be able to even improve his time a little bit further if this lap is any good, because he's still in that amazing spot behind 2 of his teammates. So now, how do Carroll and Sebastian Job respond to this one then? Because that's going to be very, very difficult to deal with. Yes, he's only about 100th of a second ahead in qualifying, but he has something you don't, and that is the 2 cars ahead of him towing him along instead of just the 1.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an advantage, that's for sure. As Jack Sedgwick has moved up to 7th place, so quicker times are coming in still. The track seems to be coming to them. I mean, the track temperature is 36 degrees, so it's relatively warm for Snetterton. I can assure you of that. As Kevin Ellis Jr. In fact, no, Jamie Fluke now, fastest time, so that slipstreaming is working out for them.
It really is. Now a couple of other drivers dipping themselves into the 108 lap times here, and well, Apex doing a very good job here. But there's the response, though. Sebastian Joe back to the very front of the pack, a 108.888. Fantastic lap time there from Sebastian, just completely blowing the Apex guys out of the water. Of course, there's still time to respond with the 5 minutes that we have remaining, but that is an incredible lap time.
Time needs more eight, in my opinion. But yeah, that's incredible from Sebastian. And the thing is, now he's towing Graham Carroll along with him, although Carroll's not going by, so they're just working things out. If you've got the chance, you can get one final pit stop and get a lap in on fresh tyres at this rate. So it will be tight because, of course, with qualifying here, once that clock strikes 0, that is it. That is the end of qualifying. You do not get a chance to finish the lap that you are on. So time is running out for drivers to set a lap time as both these drivers head to pit road.
Yeah, so the two Red Bull cars head their way down in to get their final pit stop service of the qualifying session. So they're going to be bolting on fresh tyres to both of those cars for a final charge at the very end of the session. You see the number 51 Williams Esports car out there. That is Josh Thompson. He's heading his way down the Bentley straight at the moment. Doesn't have any slipstream ahead to really benefit from here. He'll let Bart Horston go, though, and try and duck in behind him. Bart Horston, by the way, I'm impressed with his performance so far. He's pretty far up the grid. Of course, was inside that top 3, top 5 for a while, but for him to show up in this race, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a tricky track, is this as well. Let's not forget that it's one that will punish you if you say run wide, run over grass. If you make one little mistake, that is it. Now this right here, Josh Thompson, if he's careful with this, he'll get 2 flying laps at this. Because he's talking about a 108, 109. Well, the clock's about to strike to 3 minutes. So Josh Thompson now, we're on board with him. He's got to really pull a lap out of the bag and getting a slipstream, cheeky slipstream for Bart Horston. I said you either work with teammates or find somebody else to work with. Horston locking up, that's going to compromise Thompson. And that's one of the downsides of getting a slipstream from somebody.
Yeah, if they can't keep it together, then you're just going to get held up, and Josh Thompson's just going to let Bart go again and try and get in behind him. Yeah, that was kind of a lap that was thrown away there. So Josh Thompson, he's going to have to duck in behind like he has done so and go at it again. But time's starting to run out at this point. They'll get a handful of laps in, maybe 2 or so by the time the session is done. Remember, once that clock hits 0, that is it. The qualifying session just ends and you won't be able to complete your lap. So it's basically 2 laps at this point.
Well, no, this is the last lap for the 2 Red Bull guys of Graham Carroll and Sebastian Joe, because remember, a 1 minute 9, 1 minute 10 lap, that means you need 2 minutes 20 to be able to go across the line and get 2 laps in. Well, they were below that mark when they crossed the line, so this is their last chance, their last opportunity to be able to set themselves a lap time.
It will be for the Red Bull guys. Maybe some of the other drivers and teams will be able to get a second chance at things, depending on what the time is coming across the line. If they're about 1 minute 9, 1 minute 10 coming across the line, they might just be able to get in by the skin of their teeth in terms of having another opportunity. But anything less than that, then that is their qualifying session done. And that's a certainty for these cars that you're seeing right now. Graham Carroll, so he'll only get one more opportunity.
No, he won't get another opportunity. Because time is running out. This is it.
This is his last opportunity. Oh, and he's going to have to pull out of the way as William Martin just stopped in the middle of the circuit. So he's let Sebastian Job go here. This is Sebastian Job's last attempt to make a lap time happen as he drives to the line. A 108.888 to beat to improve on his pole position time, and he does it. A 108.877, an improvement for Sebastian.
Yeah, so Job finding that extra hundredth of a second to be able to just pull away a little bit more. The Fluke, Carroll, Sedgwick, Thompson, they're all in the pits. So time is running out, and I don't think Kieran Harrison's going to get to the end of the lap. He's not with 20 seconds remaining. Remember, once that clock strikes 0, that's it. So he's not going to make it to the end. I think we've pretty much had everybody set their lap times here.
Yeah, the closest car that I see that might be able to get to the line is Josh Webster, but I don't think he's quite going to make it. Actually, he does set a lap time. It's a 109.8 though, so it doesn't. It didn't actually count in the end either. His fastest time was 109.9. But that is the end of the qualifying session. Then our grid is set for race number 1 this afternoon at Snetterton, and it's Sebastian Job pole position with Jamie Fluke on that front row as well. Kevin Ellis Jr. starts in 3rd with Graham Carroll in 4th. Josh Thompson starts 5th with Bart Horston in 6th. A very star-studded front of the field there. Cycling things further back though, you've got Jack Sedgwick in P7 and Isaac Price P8, Jamie Moon P9 and John Robertson P10. Blair Mann in P11 and Jordan Weeks in P12 here today. Matt Emery starts in 13th with Kieran Harrison in 14th. Fraser Williamson will start in 15th here today with Miroslav Nashtelzik in P16. And then there's no names further down the field. You got O'Leary in 17th, you got Dorrington 18th, Drage in P19th, Williams 20th. And then those drivers that are outside of the top 20, Lewis Goodway, Liam Nitch. You've got Josh Webster, Ryan Parkins, William Martin, and of course you have Simeon Lynch that has to start at the very back of the grid here today due to a qualifying ban that was put in place at the previous race because he went over his allotted 30 seconds of penalty time. So drivers have already gotten themselves all to the starting grid. The countdown has already started to the beginning of this race. Sebastian Job, what can he do from pole position in this situation? We've got the green flag here for round number 4 at Snetterton in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup, Great Britain. Job's gotten away well, but Jamie Fluke's all over the back of him. It's a big old fight, though, for P3 between Graham Carroll and Kevin Ellis Jr. Carroll pushes out wide into the grass, and Ellis Jr. has been able to gain, hold on to that position, and now Carroll has to be concerned about Josh Thompson heading his way down the inside there at Montreal, and now on to the Bentley straight, all the slipstreaming happening up and down the field. Josh Thompson able to capitalize on a poor run from Graham Carroll, but look at that, they're side by side for the race lead right now. Jamie Fluke looks to go to the pointy end of the field through the left-hander of Brundle, on the brakes into Nelson, door-to-door action. Sebastian Job gets a big old slide and is able to hold position because Kevin backs way out of it.
Yeah, so big mistake from Job, getting on the loud pedal a bit too hard. That's allowed Fluke to the front of the field, but 24 minutes remaining and already they're at the end of the first lap. So these drivers, they're working hard. We had a couple of instances, we saw a car go off towards the rear of the field. So down towards turn number 1 they go again at Richards. Fluke at the front, but Job, he won't be panicking. He's got plenty of time, plenty of laps. You're going to be looking at about sort of maybe 22 laps or so, something like that, maybe less actually. But these drivers, they've got time here, Connery. That's the thing that they're going to be dealing with, as Harrison is on pit road.
Yeah, we did have a couple of incidents towards the very back of the field that we didn't quite catch. That's why there's some decent separation in the rear half of the field at the moment. There seems to have been a couple of first lap shenanigans going on back there. Maybe we can go back and recap that in just a couple of moments' time. But yeah, this for the very front of the field, at least a pretty clean start, although Graham Carroll won't agree with that, considering he had a couple of problems through the first couple of corners.
Yeah, getting forward, it's tricky to go too wide through Richards at the start of the race, and just ended up on the grass. We'll get a look at some replays then. So this is going to be out wide, touch the curb, back end's already swinging round into the barrier. Kieran Harrison, that's why he is on pit road right now.
Yeah, there's a heavy impact with that Armco barrier on the right-hand side of the circuit, and here's more bits of contact towards the rear half of the field there. Yeah, those are the final couple of rows of the starting grid there.
Was it Isaac Price that was involved in that? Because he's dropped down the order.
Yeah, because he started 8th on the grid, and now he's down in 22nd. So he's been involved in problems as well.
Yeah. So he's been improving. He's been feeling that his pace has improved after coming back to iRacing for the series. And well, he'll be not happy with what's happened there. But look at your two leaders. Job is all over the engine and the rear of that Northern Irishman, Jamie Fluke. And Job now putting the pressure on. There's long time left. The slipstream will be key around here, and Sebastian might be worth just sitting behind for the time being.
It could be. The draft is pretty strong here with these long straights. Job's having a look, though. Just showed the nose to the inside of Riches. But no opportunity to make your way by there. And again, defensive from Jamie. You can see Jamie's already paranoid that there's going to be a move from Sebastian Job. And Job's looking for the cutback coming through Montreal. But again, can't get anything done. The track changes sharply to the left there. So you can't really get those undercut moves done.
Look at the big grin on Jamie Fluke's face. He's loving this. It's been a while since he's been right at the sharp end of the field, so he is absolutely loving it. But don't count him out against this one. Jamie is a hard charger. Jack Sedgwick is battling with Bart Horston further back. You can see that change on the timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen. So Bart Horston just falling back a little bit. Was 5th at one point. Now down to 7th in this race. In fact, there you are on screen. Bart Horston, Jack Sedgwick in front, John Robertson behind for the time being as they go through the final corner at Murray's onto another lap.
Yeah, everything a little bit calmer here in the mid-pack especially. Drivers struggling to get themselves by, but that might be through choice rather than anything else. It is still very early doors in this race. Bart Horston there in P7 at the moment with John Robertson on the back of him. John Robertson has gained 2 spots since the start of the race already. He started down in P10. As we have a look even further down the order here, down towards the number 16 car, Matthew Dorrington. You've got Jamie Moon and Craig Williams here that are also deciding to fight things out for P number 16 out there on circuit.
I'm just seeing it on the timing screen. The lead battle. Look at this, side by side. Job's got a nose there into the bomb hole. He's going to be able to carry that all the way through Coram. Now, if Fluke is brave, he can hang it out around the outside, but it's very tricky to do that around this corner, and that gives you the inside for Murray's the final corner. That's what he's done, but it compromises your exit, and that's going to allow Kevin Ellis Jr. and Josh Thompson to come at this one.
Somehow, Job was able to get enough speed around the outside to make that happen, and now it's door-to-door for P2. Kevin Ellis Jr. looking to pick up the scraps on his teammate here outside of Riches, and Ellis Jr. is through. And now Fluke has to try and defend from Thompson as well. It's like a freight train trying to come through on Jamie Fluke at the moment. He's caught offline and can't get back into the single file train, and he's going to get forced wide here again, and now here comes Carroll. So it was looking so good for Fluke, but now he's just falling back, and maybe he can slot in behind Carroll here, but I don't think Sedgwick will give him the room to.
And that all started at Brundle. That was because of the slipstream down the Bentley Straight into Brundle and Nelson, and it's just continuing for Jamie. He's now got himself back online, so finally an entire lap where he's basically been offline here, and it's cost him 5 places.
Yeah, ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. That's horrible for him, and it's just one of those things about the circuit. Once you get offline and everyone's so close together in their single file train, it's very, very hard for you to file back in, especially if you're going side by side ahead. It bunches everyone up behind, and everyone obviously has their nose pressed into the rear bumper of the car ahead of them just so that they can get through and not let you back into the traffic. So yeah, that's a hard one to take there for Jamie Fluke, because the opening couple of laps of this race were looking so positive for him. He was able to defend from Sebastian Job once or twice, but now he's cycled all the way down into P5.
Certainly, but what does this give us once again? Sebastian Job versus Kevin Ellis Jr. Ding ding, round 3. Let's have a fight here. This is fantastic stuff. These two have been giving us some tremendous entertainment all season of this championship, and I said long may it continue. Well, we're getting it already.
Yep, we are. This looks like it's the battle that we'll be continuing to see time and time again in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup GB. These two drivers just so equal on pace. They always find themselves in the same piece of real estate out there on circuit. And, well, Sebastian Job is really trying his best to try and pull away here. He's gained a couple of tenths of a second on this lap. So if he can break the draft here, then that's basically things signed, sealed, and delivered for race number one. I get the feeling. But Ellis Jr. will be able to still get the tail end of that slipstream and still keep him honest. But Job's looking pretty strong.
They're both race winners in this championship, so they've both got that experience. They've both got that experience of trading paint and going door handle to door handle in these cars as well in this series. So they know each other very well. They've been racing against each other for years, and well, they're always respectful with their moves as well. We've seen that. We saw that at Alton Park on the final lap of the second race at Alton Park, and we saw it last week as well at Donington Park. The respect between these two, they will give each other just, and I mean just, a car's width of space, but they will leave that space.
Yeah, they will. They have a lot of respect for each other. A lot of fantastic racecraft that we've seen already between these two. So whenever they go side by side, it's an absolutely thrilling thing. But Kevin Ellis Jr. is just that little bit too far back at the moment, just over half a second back actually. So, you know, there's a decent gap between them, and both of them are actually pulling the gap on Josh Thompson at the moment. So both of them are putting in a decent effort at this stage in the race to be able to get their own space to work with. Track temp has climbed quite significantly actually. It's up to 36 degrees Celsius out there right now, which is not going to help the tyres.
Certainly not. They'll be hoping that the end of the race comes sooner, but we're only just 10 minutes into this race, so we've still got 15 to go. And of course, fixed setup, there's very little that you can do with this setup. One thing that I would say that you can do in the setup is tyre pressures. So they will have been taking that into account for how they will manage their tyres and how they will use their tyres. So, yeah, Sebastian and Kevin at the front doing a good job so far. And yeah, as you mentioned, Josh Thompson just dropping off slightly from the back of these two.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's able to keep up the same pace as those drivers ahead of him. So his sights now has to be set in his wing mirrors, because Graham Carroll is the driver all over the back of him at the moment, and he wouldn't mind getting himself up into a podium position. And there's also Jamie Fluke behind, who's trying to recover from that little moment that he had earlier on in the race where he got freight trained by about 5 cars. So he's wanting to show what he's made of in this race and gain a decent handful of points. But you know, what could have been? What could have been if he wasn't hung out to dry in the early portions of this race? Oh, slightly different lines there from Thompson and Carroll coming into Nelson.
Yeah, just Thompson's pushing that a little bit too hard. I feel he's trying desperately to get with the leaders, and every little sort of half mistake that he makes, just getting his line wrong a little bit, will cost about half a tenth, maybe a tenth of a second, and that's all you need. That's all it takes to lose out. I mean, he's lost about 2/10 of a second on this lap compared to the two race leaders. So Ellis Jr. right now seems to be content just sitting in Sebastian Job's wheel tracks, whereas Thompson, you can see him working the wheel. Look at how much effort he's having to put into it through Riches. It's a tricky corner, is that, I will say. Montreal, look at that full lock to the right, and the back end's just not cooperating with him there onto the Bentley straight. So Thompson's having to really work hard at this one. Yeah,
the rear's really wandering around in the traction zones for Josh Thompson. So dealing with some wheel spin, some oversteer again, just trying to wrestle with the wheel coming through Brondel. And yeah, that's sometimes what makes this car so fun to drive, because sometimes it is a little bit of a handful. It's a real driver's car. So you know, it's fantastic to see. It's a lot of work, but it's so rewarding.
Certainly is, and if you get that hooked up right, then you are in a good place, and it's really a rewarding car as this. But if you're not quite in sync with it, it can be a long day at the office for you out there. But you see that queue of cars, it's just spread out a little bit, hasn't it, as this queue of cars, although saying that about Horston, 7th place, currently under pressure then from, that'll be John Robertson. There's Blair Mann, not that far behind them either.
Yeah, Blair Mann started P11, he's in P9 now, and like you said, he has potential positions ahead of him if he can lock onto the back of this train. Of course, there's been a very little movement so far here in this mid-pack. Of course, we had the opening lap or so of complete craziness as they were going too wide through the first couple of corners, but apart from that, we haven't really seen all that much movement back here. And some drivers just taking some liberties a little bit with the track limits there, dipping the 2 tyres into the grass and into the dirt. But they're all able to get through okay. You got to be careful though, because that grass can grab the car.
Yeah, it can bite and bite hard around this track. You can see that there's very little in terms of well, there's no tarmac runoff around here. So if you get a wheel on the grass, you are then just a passenger if you do lose control. So yeah, these drivers have got to be precise about this, and that's exactly what we're seeing here as we go through into that right-hander at Montreal. I keep on wanting to call it Sia, but there you go. As Thompson running wide through that hairpin, that's allowed Carroll to get the run on him. Yeah,
this is Carroll's opportunity now with 10 minutes left to go in this event, looking to drive his right-hand side. Oh, he cracks open the gap. He wedges it open and has the outside for Brundle, but more importantly, it gives him the inside for Nelson. He doesn't even need it. He's already ahead by the time the apex of Nelson comes up on him. But wow, Josh Thompson's not happy about that, and he is a driver that's known to get frustrated and angry.
Well, I'm sorry, but Thompson was squeezing Carroll onto the grass there, so you know, you can flash your headlights all you like there, Josh, but you know, Carroll had every right to be there, and he made that move work around the outside of Brundle into Nelson, and Thompson now dropped down to 4th, and Carroll will be setting his sights forward, but Ellis Jr. and Job have pulled away from them with that battle there.
Yeah, the gap stands at, let's see, just around about a second. It's more like 1.8 seconds, actually, between P2 and P3 at the moment. So they have lost a little bit more time here, fighting deeper in the pack as well. This is the battle for 15th and back with Matthew Dorrington, Craig Williams, and Rafael Drage, as there's Isaac Price heading his way down in as well, so he's very much involved in this battle. Weeks and Drage were going side by side further back in the shot there as well. But everything's all fine on the way down the Bentley straight into Brundle. So a couple of changes for position further deeper in the pack, but this is sort of a second half of the field shenanigans going on right now. Very minor points paying positions, and I think I just saw Isaac Price just way overcommit there into Brundle. Yeah,
he's in 17th, Isaac Price, so he's gaining some positions back, but yeah, he won't be happy with how things are going in this race here today. Jordan Weeks, though, behind Isaac. He's looking to progress forward, slowly being... it seems that he's improving as the weeks go, but he's still not able to get himself out of that mid-pack, is Jordan, and so he's getting involved in little silly incidents that's affecting his races in this series.
Yeah, started P12, now down in P18. That's a loss of 6 positions there for Jordan Weeks. Not ideal at all. Again, you know, it's all judging based off of, sometimes, you know, how your race goes is all based off of those first couple of laps. If you're able to hold position, you're usually in for a good time. If you gain positions, again, you're in for a good time. But if you just start losing these positions here and there, then that just really gets inside your own head, and you're always on the defense instead of always on the offense. And some drivers really don't like always being on the defense.
Certainly not, as they go through once again. But this queue of cars, you've got Carroll at the head of it, then Thompson, Fluke, Sedgwick, Horston, Robertson, and Mann. We've got a car around at the final corner, by the way, all on his own, which is Simeon Lynch.
Yeah.
it's going from bad to worse. Had to start at the back of the field, and then just has an instant all of his own through Coram, the exit of Coram into Murray's. So he's back up and running though, but he's down in 21st.
Yeah, the day's not gone well for Lynch. Well, it didn't even start well, considering, like you said, he had that qualifying ban, so had to start on the very final position on the grid here today, P26. So, yeah, it's not gone great. He has been able to gain a couple of positions on drivers that have had problems. Josh Webster has retired from this event, so has Kieran Harrison with that heavy shunt at the very start of the race. So he's just watching the race with the rest of us now and waiting for race 2 to start, where he will still have to start from the very bottom of the grid. So it's only the top 6 that get reversed here. So the reversed grid pole position right now is going to Jack Sedgwick, actually, with Jamie Fluke starting on the front row if they finish as they are. So good opportunity for both of those for race 2 if they're able to come home P56.
Fluke having to start from the same position that he started this race. So
yeah.
He'll be very familiar to him, and he'd want to get the jump. By the way, Sebastian Job has been pulling away from Ellis Juniors. I just don't think Kevin's quite got the pace of Sebastian here today, so those two have separated out. But this battle, this is 3rd all the way down to 9th. This is it's great to see, and I think it's not going to be long before we'll light the blue touch paper and away it goes. We'll see how this one pans out as we head into that final few minutes of the race.
Well, they've got 5 laps to go. The laps really do come thick and fast here at the Snetterton 200 layout. So, bit of, well, there's car off in the background there. Isaac Price trying to fight with Jordan Weeks here. That's the position P17 that Jordan Weeks is just about to be able to get himself up into. Who was that car behind? I think it was Rafael Drage that went out into the grass there.
Yes.
All on his own. Wasn't influenced by anyone else. And just the back end just got away from him.
Yeah, just losing it yourself. But look at these 3. Hats off to Craig Williams to keep these 2 behind him at the moment, because they, everyone is a quick driver here. Let's not beat about the bush. They all had to qualify for this series through a qualification process, and now these drivers find themselves in the races, and they're all battling it out. And Price, on that recovery drive, not having the easiest of times to work his way forward. It almost reminds me of Jamie Fluke at Alton Park in round 2 when he had to try and make that recovery drive.
Yeah, and Price is just a little stuck here, locks up the brakes into Nelson, and, well, if you wanted any evidence he's trying to push that car hard, well, there it is, but it's not getting anything done for him right now, as Jordan Weeks and Craig Williams are able to pull the gap slightly and continue on with their battle together without the involvement of Isaac Price. But Price does seem to be quicker than these 2. I mean, he did start way higher on the grid than these 2 did. Start P8. It's just the early... There we go. Craig Williams. I think he was waiting for someone to say that he was on camera so he could do that. There we go. He's got that cheeky grin.
Yeah, he's happy with that. Oh, he's showing off now. Concentrate on your racing, Craig, as he goes through turn 1 at Richards, but he's managed to stay ahead. He's put some extra heat through his rear tyres there by doing that, though, so that won't help matters for pulling down the Bentley straight. As battling further up, Matt Emery, Fraser Williamson, Thomas O'Leary, they're all scrapping it out for that top 10, and in fact, Emery's got it all wrong through Nelson.
All wrong, and Weeks, let's contact Jordan Weeks out into the grass, tagged around there by Craig Williams into Nelson, and well, there was space for the 2 of them coming through that corner. It was just a big old punt there from Craig Williams. We'll just have to have a look at that one a little bit later on. Of course, the stewards look at things post-race in this series to try and decide if there's any malice in that one and if any penalty should be applied. But yeah, Weeks out into the grass and then losing a whole bunch of positions. Here's another look.
So that's Weeks and Williams together. Williams is there. that needs a look later on, and the stewards will certainly be looking at that later on. But we're getting into the final couple of minutes here. I said things would start picking up at this point, and that's exactly what you're seeing. Now Fraser Williamson desperately trying to break the slipstream of Thomas O'Leary and everyone else behind him, Moon, Nastelchek and Emery. So Matt Emery was at the head of this field in 10th place, all the way down to 14th with that one mistake at Nelson.
Yeah, just one mistake can really just cause more problems further down the line. As we watch these guys head their way through, the evolving number 76, this is Jamie Moon. You've got Thomas O'Leary ahead of him in the number 14, the blue Porsche there. And we've also got further ahead Fraser Williamson at the very front of that particular battle pack that you see coming across the grid spots and across the start-finish line. We are, at this point, 2 laps to go, I would say, for these drivers. So, again, I did say the laps come thick and fast here. So, you know, with a minute and a half remaining, still 2 laps to go. Yeah,
it's a quick lap round here. It's a fast circuit. Is Snetterton. When you're not running the infield, it really does come thick and fast. It's the 2-mile layout. That's why it's called the 200 layout. Is this one? As they go down that Bentley Straight once again. Everything's staying static in those front battles at the moment. So this is why we're having a look at this one, as the drivers will be coming round to start their final lap this time by.
I'll be interested in the battle in this train. It's like our director reads my mind sometimes. I was just thinking about this battle and he just switches to it. So thank you very much, Tyler. But here we go. Start of the final lap then. Sebastian Job has been able to pull away in the race. He's got the gap up to around about a second now. So he's pretty safe right now from Kevin Ellis Jr. But in this battle for thirds, the final podium spot, it's, well, safe is simply a word that you cannot use to describe any of these positions right now. But it's going to require a big old effort, a big old dive on the final lap here for any of these drivers to try and improve position. Remember, the battle for P6 and therefore the reverse grid pole is also involved deeper in this train as well. Jack Sedgwick's just about able to hold on to that, but Horston is the driver that's looking to try and get that reverse grid pole position. Here comes the slipstream then into Brundle and then into Nelson. And there's still no opportunities here, but Carroll's pushed wide off the corner. This might be the chance for Thompson to make it happen and get himself up into the podium spot. But he just doesn't quite have the legs, I don't think, heading their way through Coram for the final time. I don't think there's going to be a dive here from Thompson to go for P3. But meanwhile, at the very front of the field, Sebastian Job comes across the line to win race number 1 here at Snetterton. Kevin Ellis Jr. second in line, flashing the lights. He's pretty happy with that result. And Graham Carroll holds on in that big old battle pack. He gets third.
Yeah, good stuff from Graham and everyone else, but Sebastian Job again showing that pace. He put in a really good display there. Everyone else still just coming across the line. I can tell you that going through the final couple of corners is people like Simeon and Lynch is going through there. Thomas O'Leary. So yeah, there's a final few cars coming across, but yeah, great stuff from Sebastian. As we'll look at what happened here, because Thomas O'Leary was involved in things, and that's what's happened there at Nelson.
Yeah, back end just got away from him, and he has to wait to try to rejoin the circuit. Oh, it's so difficult in that situation where you're spun the wrong direction, you're seeing cars coming, and you just know you can't pull out in front of them, and you're just seeing every single car as a single position lost. That you just have to deal with. But that's race number 1 here done at Snetterton. We can take a little look at the race results from race number 1. So there's Sebastian Job getting yet another race win this season. The gap was 1.1 seconds at the very end there, so he was able to break the draft and use his clear air pace to really put Kevin in his place. Graham Carroll in P3. Josh Thompson finally with a decent result there in P4. It was in P3 for a good portion of this race, but Carroll was able to find his way by. Jamie Fluke, P5, but he was fighting in amongst the top couple positions earlier on as well. But he'll start on the front row for the reverse grid. Jack Sedgwick will be pole position So that's an interesting predicament there. Bart Horson just about misses out on the reverse grid pole in P7. John Robertson P8, Blair Mann P9, and Fraser Williamson is on the final spot inside of the top 10. A decent margin behind the rest of the drivers there. But looking at the second page in just a couple of moments, Jamie Moon is P11. Misrav Nasoltik in P12. We've also got Matt Emery, P13, Matthew Dorrington, P14, Craig Williams giving us a thumbs up and a smile on the webcams there. He's in P15 and Isaac Price P16, and you see those drivers towards the rear half of the field, and for some of them involving the likes of Isaac Price, for example, Jordan Weeks, they didn't really have the best of days, and of course the final driver that's classified in P26, Kieran Harrison, had that big shunt at the very start of the races as well, so he's looking for a little bit more in this second race to see if he can try and work his way through the field. Yeah,
won't be happy with what happened right at the start. To basically not get further than turn 1 will be disappointing for Kieran, and of course Josh Webster as well ended up out of the race. So yeah, disappointing for those two, but they'll be looking to bounce back and show some tremendous bounce back ability here in this second race. But we've got that little bit of a lull now, haven't we, where we've got everyone, the drivers, just takes a little bit of a break and gets themselves prepared for race number 2 with that inverted grid. It'll be interesting to see how Jack Sedgwick gets on. He's been there or thereabout, but he's not quite had the top pace of the top guys here.
But Jamie Fluke has, and he starts right next to him on that front row. And we saw in that first race, Fluke was able to get the pass on the leader coming up through the first couple of corners. So is that going to worry Sedgwick now to remember that, well, Fluke was able to do this in the last race. There's no reason why he couldn't do it in this race either.
But he also know that Fluke dropped back in the race as well. So, it can work both ways here with those drivers out there. So definitely it's going to be an interesting race of tactics and also of luck as well. You need an element of luck around this track. And we've seen that with a few of the drivers out there today. But yeah, look out for Sebastian and Kevin Ellis Jr. Those two can really work their way through the field, but it's not going to be easy for them. With it only being the top 6, we saw how close in pace terms the even top 9 were in that first race.
Yeah, we really did. We do have a couple of highlights prepared from the very first race here. And of course, a lot of things happening in the opening couple of laps of this one involving Jamie Fluke. You see Graham Carroll going way out into the grass, and you've got Kieran Harrison in the back of the shot there having a heavy impact with the Armco barrier, which ended his race very early indeed. But apart from those opening couple of problems, we didn't actually see too many shenanigans in this race. Yes, we saw a couple of spins, we saw a couple of fender benders, shall we say, but apart from that, everything is pretty clean, all things considered.
Yeah, this is the move for the lead then that Sebastian Job made. Round the outside of Brundle, that's tricky, but it gave him the inside then for the bomb hole and Coram, and the fact that he was able to keep the nose there, it compromised Jamie Fluke. As I say, you can hold it around the outside, but you've got to be brave to be able to get the inside to the next corner, but it compromises your exit and it loses your speed all the way down the centre straight, and that's exactly what you saw there. The launch that Job gets compared to Fluke, and now Fluke has to be defensive against Kevin Ellis Jr., against Josh Thompson. That happens all the way down through Riches in towards Montreal and then all the way down the straight.
Yeah, it does, and we saw decent battles in the mid-pack as well. I gotta say though, with that Fluke and Job battle, Fluke was very generous in giving the room on the outside of the final corner. That's great racecraft for him, and even though he kind of knew that Job would get a better run off the corner as a result of that, at least there wasn't contact between the two of them, and they were able to continue on racing. That's what you love to see, and the racecraft has been particularly good in this series. A bit of adoring going on there on the highlight reel, but all in all, everyone I think kind of respects each other.
Yeah, I would say that the racing is generally good. I mean, that's a little mistake. I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that instant there with O'Leary, but it's when you get racing cars that are this closely matched together in a series, you're going to have the smallest of mistakes will have huge consequences. And I think that's what you're seeing out there in this championship. So, I'm not surprised that there are little contacts here and there, but overall, the racing generally is been really respectful, really, really good and clean.
Also, I do want to highlight as well, Josh Thompson finally coming away with a decent result and looking pretty good coming into this next race as well, since he'll be starting in P3. So it's very positive here for the driver from the Isle of Man, and because he's had so much trouble recently in a lot of the series that he's done in the Porsche Super Cup. He's had problems and has always been towards the back of the field, sometimes through no fault of his own as well. And we saw on that particular broadcast with his team boss just trying to give some words for encouragement. And I think words of encouragement are good, but once you start getting the results, then you'll start feeling a little bit better for yourself.
Yeah, it's confidence is a strange thing. It really is. If you lose that confidence, you just feel like everything's going against you and the world's against you. And I think being involved in this series and being up at the front end of this series will help Josh. He himself admits that in the past he used to be quite an aggressive driver, shall we say, but he definitely he's learnt to try and channel that into being a good, clean racer, but fast and fair. And he's really worked hard at his racecraft. And as you say, a lot of the instance that's been happening for Josh in the World Championship Series has not really been his fault. He's been getting caught up in silly little incidents. But here, in this series, he's able to run near the front of the championship and really put the pressure on.
Yeah, and like you said, confidence is a major element of the racing here. It's, once you get to this top level where everyone is so relatively close, you need every single little edge possible to be able to gain the advantage over your competitors, whether that's a mental edge or even a physical fitness edge in some cases as well. That also helps you focus. Those little things really add up on top of each other, and that makes the difference between someone who wins a championship and someone who just finishes in the top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, these drivers, they all want to win the championship, but getting the top 3 would be nice as well, because that's some prize money for them. But definitely, when you're involved in the championship like this and you're in that top 5-6 range, you're wanting to be winning the championship. That is your sole aim for this championship. People like further down in your field, Craig Williams, people of that ilk, they're quick drivers, but they'll be setting their aims of, let's get a top 10 this race. Let's try and sort of break that top 10. They're they're realistic. They know what they can achieve, and when you've got Fluke, you've got Price, you've got Robertson, Job, Sedgwick, Carroll. Those drivers are just that little. They've got that edge there, and to breach into that top group, that elite group, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication to get to that level.
It really does. There's a lot of hours that goes in behind the scenes for every single one of these guys. Especially the top guys putting in so much work. It's basically a full-time job for them at this point, and for many of them, it kind of is, even financially as well. Full-time professional sim racer. Imagine saying that, 5-10 years ago, that people would be able to do that, and it's starting to happen. Esports is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I am here for it. So, we've got race 2 coming up here in just a couple of moments' time. We're a couple of seconds actually away from getting the confirmation of the starting grid here, as the drivers will be preparing themselves for this race number 2. So here's the starting grid then. We only have a minute of gridding time, so we need to speed through it. Jack Sedgwick in pole position thanks to the reverse grid. We've got Jamie Fluke on the front row as well. Josh Thompson, Graham Carroll, Kevin S. Jr. and Sebastian Job will round out your top 6 drivers here for race 2 on the start. Bart Horston P7, John Robertson P8, and you've got Blair Mann, Fraser Williamson, Jamie Moon and Mizrav Lasholsik in That's bringing things down to that P12. You'll see the rest of the drivers trickle through relatively quickly up on screen for you now. So, Jack Sedgwick is the reverse grid pole position driver right now, with Jamie Fluke on that front row as well. So, will there be a repeat of race 1 with Fluke able to get by on this opening lap? We will just have to wait and see. The drivers are ready, and we are ready as well for race number 2 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup here at Snetterton. It's underway now as they all get themselves started and storm their way down in towards turn number 1. Cedric's been able to get away well at the front. Battle for P3 though between Josh Thompson and Graham Carroll. Here's the almost touch doors coming through turn number 1. Everyone's clean through there. Couple of drivers dipping 2 tires into the dirt. Yet more side-by-side action. Oh, Cedric spun. That's your race leader. Your pole position sitter is now out into the grass, and now Fluke leads this race.
Wow, that's a big moment. Did he just drop that all on his own? Well, I'm sure we'll get a look at that in a little bit time. But Fluke then to the front. Thompson very bullish at the start there to make sure he got himself in front of Carroll. Carroll's ahead of Job, so Job has managed to work his way ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. at the start here as well. So a good strong start for those, but Jack Sedgwick will be absolutely livid with that. And here we go then. Is it all on his own? I think it is. And yes, he's carried too much speed. Cold tyres, don't forget as well, are a big issue here, and that's him around.
That's possibly the pressure from starting pole position. First corner, drops it, coming through the middle. The back end just getting away from him, and like you said, it's cold tyres at this stage in the race, which certainly isn't helping. So that's a shame there for Jack Sedgwick. He could have done so many amazing things from that starting position. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to hold on to the race lead, but at least the top 5 finish. But now he's all the way towards the very back of the field, as he had to wait for everyone to come by to rejoin the circuit as well. But back towards the very front of the field, that is Jamie Fluke. He led for the opening portions of race number 1 after getting into that situation with Sebastian Job of Job trying to get by around the outside of the final corner, and then the complete and utter freight train heading through on Jamie Fluke. But now he's hoping that something like that does not happen, and he can have a pretty clean race at the very front of the field. He tries to break away at the moment from Josh Thompson.
Kieran Harrison, by the way, we're looking at right now. Tremendous start, up 9 positions at the start of this race. So after making that mistake in race 1 to Richards, is now really trying to redeem himself in this race. So good stuff from Kieran at the back of the field.
Yeah, fantastic indeed. That's the recovery that you need. If you can get a handful of those positions done in the first couple of laps from starting at the very back of the grid, that sets yourself up so well. Sometimes you also feel, up against these drivers that are typically slower than you, you feel invincible. You can feel like you can pull off passes left, right, and centre, but you need to tame that a little bit and just be a little bit more measured. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into a bit of an error.
We saw Drage lose out to Sedgwick, so Sedgwick's trying to work his way back through the field, but here's Graham Carroll then. So Carroll, he's got to think about a race win at some point. He was sniffing around his teammate on that last lap of last week at Donington Park, down at the Melbourne hairpin, but right now Carroll is trying his best as, well, there's 56, that's Lee McNinch, working his way past Nastelchek.
Yeah, so a fantastic fight here down in the mid-pack of things. A couple of changes of position, and Nastelchek, this is very tight train here for these positions further down the order. This is P14, 15, 16, 17 up on screen right now, and well, not a lot of room between them, shall we say. Absolutely nose to tail in this pack here. They've kind of separated out from the front of the field once again, because we did have a couple of incidents in the mid-pack at the very start through the first couple of corners, so that's caused a decent amount of separation. Back towards the very front, though, Jamie Fluke trying to break the slipstream back to Thompson, and Thompson, well, he's just going to commit to the driver's right-hand side right now, which is, he's not trying to play the slipstream shenanigans with Fluke at the moment. But, yeah, I'm interested to see how this is going to shape up, because we know... Oh, look at that! In the back of the shot! That's Kevin Ellis Jr. going side by side with Sebastian Job. It's basically around 15 million at this moment with these guys having gone side by side so many times here in this series at the very first couple of rounds. Kevin Ellis Jr. looking to go around the outside at the final corner, but he doesn't have the speed. Robertson sniffing an opportunity on his teammate as well. Horston in that 12 car is also looking to try and improve positions as well. He might be able to get past John Robertson here into turn 1. Robertson's going to try and defend this on the inside, but Horston has a lot of speed around the long way, but not quite enough to be able to get the overspeed into the hairpin, but he's still in contention door to door, but Robertson's able to secure it. What a fantastic sequence.
This is fantastic stuff. We've got more battling going on. Nestelchik involved in this one with Kieran Harrison. He's also there with Nick McNinch as well. Thomas O'Leary's with them. And then they've got that pack behind of Dorrington, Sedgwick and Goodway. So great action all the way through the field. In fact, Rafael Drage has had to take a tour back to the pits. That's why he shows as the race leader at the moment on our timing tower, but that will sort itself out. So issues for Drage. McNinch running wide through Nelson, and that's allowing then Nestelchik to be able to go down the inside, and Harrison's trying to follow him.
Yeah, he is, and he'll have the inside for Coram as well. McNish on that left-hand side of the circle, driver's left-hand side of the circle, will be able to get the inside from the final corner, but there's the big cutback move attempted by Kieran Harrison, but he wasn't quite able to time it right. And now O'Leary has a slight opportunity about doing something here into turn 1, but everyone's just going to stay line astern for now.
This is tremendous stuff. This is what we want to see here in this championship. Running wide. That's
no.
Harrison. He's hit the same wall. He's out of control. How did they all miss him? That is absolutely incredible. My goodness, Nestelchik must have been heart in mouth there. Harrison just out of control. As soon as you're trying to stop the car on the grass there, it's like glass. You've got no chance, and you're a passenger at that point. Amazingly, everyone avoided him as around goes McNinch.
Yeah, things are gonna calm down here, lads. It's getting a little bit too feisty now. A bit of contact from behind there, McNish. Thomas O'Leary getting into his right rear quarter there, upsetting the car and causing him to spin out into the grass. But it's such a shame there for Kieran Harrison, because he called it, Paul. He hit the same Arco barrier as he did in race number 1, and in the same sort of fashion as well, with the heavy impact into it. Oh, that's a shame. That is absolutely crazy. But let's have another look.
So this is it. So it just again. Oh, there's contact this time, though. That's what caused it, the hip check from McNinch. You want to have a look at that from Nestelchik's point of view, from on board his point of view, because all of a sudden you'll just see a car swipe across the front of you there. There's not a lot that Harrison could do there. By the way, Sedgwick is now making a move on Thomas O'Leary, so all that shenanigans. Here we go! This is what I wanted to see here. So you see, Nestelchik ran wide, that compromised McNinch. Ninch then hits him, and then on board, all of a sudden, whoa! There's a car!
I think some new trousers are needed for Nestelchik there. I'm being completely honest. My word, that must have been a scary, scary moment. I would have jumped out of my sim rig if that happened to me. But here we go, Josh Thompson having to defend from Carroll, and Carroll easy down the inside. What a strong move there in towards turn 1, and Job's looking to try and get his way through on the brakes into the hairpin as well, and Josh Thompson's scared wide, and here comes Ellis Jr. Not quite able to capitalize, but that's exactly what happens if you get offline here. There's a lot of cars behind that want to get their way through, and Ellis Jr. is not too happy about that.
Well, no, it's actually Josh Thompson who's not happy with it. Shake of the head, though, from him. He's not happy at losing out, getting jumped by both Carroll and by Job, and that's the problem. If you end up offline through Riches and you've got 2 cars there, the other car's just going to follow through into Montreal. So that's what's happened there. So Job up into 3rd, Carroll in 2nd. They've now got to try and charge down on the very quick and rapid Jamie Fluke, but Fluke at the front of this race here, only by 7/10, so he'll be giving a slipstream to the rest of this pack.
He will, and he hasn't been able to pull enough of a gap to break that. So Carroll and Job, are still very much a threat here as far as the race lead is concerned. Luke, we've seen some slight peaks of his defensive driving already so far this event. Remember those early portions of race number 1, but you can't afford to have the same thing happen, especially through the final corner of getting caught offline and having the train come through on him and experiencing a little bit of deja vu.
Certainly, as they're heading into Brundle and then Nelson once again. Oh, Martin. Something's happened to William Martin here, so we may be able to find out. Oh, just completely spins it around, and well, I'm surprised he's parked it, to be honest, but there you go. William Martin deciding that not to go any further in this race. So 4 cars now out of the race: Martin, Harrison, Draj and Webster.
Yeah, so a good couple of drivers dropping out. You see Martin dropping down the timing order. The reason why, everyone, the drivers that take the tow get to the very top of our timing tower is because they get towed basically around the rest of the lap. So they basically teleport ahead of everyone into the pit lane. So that's why they show ahead of everyone once they take the tow back to pit lane. That's just a limitation of the iRacing API, I suppose. But yeah, it does cause some confusion, but we can explain that for you. Meanwhile, further back in the pack, some side-by-side action. Nastelzik versus Cedric this time around. Cedric's on a recovery drive after completely bottling it on the first lap of this race. Oh, O'Leary out into the grass and noses it into the Armco. Still a side-by-side moment here for Nastelzik and Cedric. Cedric will have the inside for Brundle, but the outside for Nelson if Nastelzik's able to keep it in here. Carries a lot of speed around the outside, does Nastelzik, and there's contact through the middle of the corner, and Nastelzik's around as well.
Yeah, with the way that he went in there, that was always going to spin him around and not Cedric, because he didn't hit the quarter panel, he hit about around the A pillar of the car there, so that was always going to send him around. And yeah, Cedric, he left space there, so I would say that's more on Miroslav there, but to the lead, because Fluke has been reeled in by Carroll and Job. Thompson is still there, along with Ellis Jr., so you know, don't count those two out of this one. And now Fluke once again playing the slipstream game, trying to break that slipstream, but you're not going to do that against Graham Carroll there in second.
You're not. Oh, a little bit slow there coming through Nelson for Jamie Fluke. So losing him a chunk of time to Graham Carroll. And Carroll, I think Job's just kind of going to let Carroll try and go for this race lead at the moment. That's the benefit of having a teammate behind you, is that they're not going to be overly aggressive with you, trying to capitalize on any little mistake you make. So Job might just be content to sit behind you, let his teammate do all the work and follow through in his tyre tracks.
Absolutely, and don't forget as well, Job is ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. in this race. So first and second in the championship, it's Job who's going to be just pulling out that little bit of a gap once again in this event.
Yep,
oh, Thompson's jumped out the way. Ellis Jr. up into fourth.
Yeah, so Thompson getting caught on the outside of the hairpin. It was a big lunge, actually, from Kevin Ellis Jr. that, well, made the gap. Josh Thompson was actually scared offline due to the big old dive from Ellis Jr. So I think if Thompson didn't take avoiding action there would have been contact.
And again, that's where his racecraft has improved a lot over the years. He's recognising these things and realising that if I don't get out the way here, I'm going to be, well, out in the grass saying hello to Scary Tree. But that is what he has done. He got out the way, realised that it wasn't worth having the contact there. Yes, Ellis would have probably ended up with a penalty, but that doesn't give you your points back. So that's what we'll see. Here's a replay then on the right-hand side. Ellis Jr., it was at the quarter panel. It wasn't really that that much. I don't think it was Ellis Jr.'s line to take, but Thompson thinking, retreat is the best form of valour there, and drops back into 5th place. Still some good points for him.
Here's the onboard then with your championship leader, Sebastian Job. He has his teammate of Graham Carroll ahead. He has Jamie Fluke, the race leader, ahead of him. So things are going to get very close here inside the final 10 minutes in terms of the race lead and those podium positions. Remember, Kevin Ellis Jr. would love to gain some points here over Sebastian Job, and well, he's gained a lot of time over the last lap or so to be able to make that happen. He got very quickly past Josh Thompson. We saw that on the replay, and now he's on the back of Sebastian here. So those are your 2 championship leaders that might have a duel here as well. So now I don't really think that Sebastian Job can really afford to just sit back and relax here, because here comes Carroll down the inside on your race leader. Fluke trying to hold on around the outside. And where is Sebastian Job going to go? He's going to look to try and find a lane through, but there's nowhere for him to go. Carroll on the inside of the hairpin. Fluke, oh, there's little bits of contact between them, and both the Red Bull cars are through. Ellis Jr. is looking for a run of speed here as well. Sebastian Job is looking on his teammate for the race lead here. He knows that Kevin Ellis Jr. is hard charging through the field, and he's all over the back of him now, 2 by 2, all into Brundle, all into Nelson as well. This is fantastic action here at the final 10 minutes. Sebastian Job has to be careful about that dirt and grass on the outside there, but he's through to the race lead on his teammate, and now he has a bit of a rear gunner as Kevin Ellis Jr. is trying to get past Fluke for P3.
Job did what he had to do. He had to follow his teammate. Now look at this. Fluke is going to be compromised. Ellis Jr. gets to run out the corner. Thompson getting his nose cut off there.
Ooh.
Had to get out of it. And that's allowed Bart Horston now to get all over the back of Josh Thompson. Going too wide almost. Into Richards on a dive. Oh, Fluke. He was never making that corner.
No.
And Fluke is the one who loses out on there. Oh, man. The man who, if he didn't have any bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. Jamie Fluke, the innocent party there.
What is that dive from Thompson? That is not a very good idea. That is a lunge and a half.
I think he's lost his braking marker because he's been concentrating so much on Bart Horston there making the move. I think he's lost his braking marker, hit the brakes, and there he goes. He lets Fluke pass, but well, that won't do anything in terms of the eyes of the stewards there. I would imagine that they will apply a penalty after that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. It's just a little lapse in concentration. Of course, you know, if you don't have a visual reference for your braking point, then, like you said, that really doesn't help if it's being blocked by a car. But like you said, it's not an excuse in the driver's eyes, in the steward's eyes, excuse me. So again, that will be looked at after this race, and of course all the incidents will be looked at after this race if there's protests come through in that situation. Oh, Job, I was scared he was going to get the back end out there coming through the exit of turn 1, but he's able to keep it together, and he's looking for the double race win here today. Let's look at the positives of that, though. Bart Horston now is up to 4th place. He'll be delighted with his performance here today. You've got Jamie Moon up into 6th place now on the back of these cars. Blair Mann in 7th, and Fraser Williamson in 8th place. This is really good performances for those drivers. They've not had the best of times in the opening rounds of the championship, so to find themselves up there is tremendous. I mean, Jamie Moon, okay, he finished 6th in the opening round of the championship at Silverstone in that first race, but really hasn't been in and around since then, so it's a good positive drive for Jamie. It is, and he can take a lot away from a lot away from this if I get my words in the right order. I am a native English speaker, apparently, but having a look at the very front of the field still here with Job continuing to try and manage the gap at this stage, I would say. He's not pulling it. So. He's pushing, though.
Yeah, he's sliding that car through Richards, which isn't the best way of doing that because you're going to really work your rear tyres a lot. Now, Williamson and Isaac Price battling it out on track, and Price is locked up, and thank you very much. Simeon Lynch is going to try and get Fraser Williamson as well.
Yep, here's the fight is on here deeper in the pack. A big blocking move there by Isaac all the way to driver's left-hand side of the circuit to try and keep Emery at bay. Here comes the move then. Lynch on Williamson into Brundle. Williamson at the inside here for Nelson. This has been a hot spot in terms of contact so far over these past 2 races, but they're able to get through just okay. And Lynch able to get himself up into what is going to be a P8 at the moment. So he's gained 12 spots since the very start of this race, is Lynch.
Yeah, doing a really good job. He's trying to mitigate that penalty that he had to move himself forward and take advantage of others' mistakes and errors. So he's done a good job of that. But he finds himself in 8th place and a bit in no man's land, because he's now got about 8 seconds in front of him as Blair Mann. So he's about as far forward as he'll go there in that race. But right now, Kevin Ellis Jr., he needs, in terms of the championship, to mitigate Sebastian Job being at the front again. He needs to finish second as a minimum here. Yeah,
I think so too. And, you know, as a byproduct of a potential P2 fight here, that will just allow Job to get away. So Carroll is Job's best friend at the moment, if he can hold up Kevin Ellis Jr. We've still got, well, less than 5 minutes left in this race now, so handful of laps to go. Ellis Jr., I think, like you said, P2 is probably the best that you can hope for here, unless anything else happens. You can see the flashing of the lights there from Graham Carroll. Not exactly sure what he's flashing the lights about.
Oh, there's been an instant last corner. Fraser Williamson and Isaac Price. They've had a big moment through Coram. They were running side by side. I saw it from my my position in the sim, actually, with having a view of that final corner. And yeah, that was a big moment of them.
Yep. Oh, they're leaning on each other through Coram, and yeah, front to rear contact. Williamson just leaning a little bit too much on the driver ahead. But of course, you know, that's just my view. The stewards will have a look at that after the race as well and apply any penalty if required. They're still fighting out there on circuit as well. Lewis Goodway's involved in this now, splitting up the drivers of Price and Storrington. So great scrapping here in the positions just outside of that top 10. But with 3 minutes to go, Kevin Ellis Jr. in P3 still hasn't quite had an opportunity just yet to make his way by on Carroll, and Job is continuing to put in some fantastic lap times to pull away.
Yeah, again, Job just showing his class here out there on the grid and at the front. You put him in a fixed setup series and he's just as good as he is in a World Championship with an open setup. He's just a level. Him and Kevin Ellis Jr. are just that little bit of a level ahead of pretty much the majority of the grid here in this championship. Graham Carroll won't like me saying that, but you know, Graham is a very talented driver, finds himself up there at the front, but just Job has that little bit of an edge over him.
That seems to be the case. It's been exemplified quite well here due to the fact that Job has been able to pull this gap and has been has had the upper hand in the qualifying sessions, not just in this race, but in the through the rest of the season as well. So I guess that's where things lie for Graham Carroll and Sebastian Job. But Kevin Ellis Jr., you mentioned it before, Paul, he needs to minimize this points deficit to Job now. He needs to get up into second place to try and, well, keep his championship hopes more alive than they are right now. 2 minutes left to go across the line, 2 laps by my calculation. There's the view of Kevin Ellis Jr. It's going to be a crazy final couple of laps if these guys get anywhere near to going side by side. There might even be a lunge at the hairpin, perhaps. You know, that is an option that's available, and he's going to go for it, looking for the inside. He almost gets crowded out on the inside of the curb there, but somehow he's been able to get a bit of an overlap. But Carroll keeps himself ahead, but they're still so close. There's still slipstream opportunity.
That moving across in the braking zone there from Graham, and Bart Horston now is ready to pounce if these two come a cropper into Brundle. Oh, lock up from Carroll. That's going to compromise Nelson. Whoa. Oh, and he's parked on the apex and Carroll's around.
Yep, he is. He drops down through the field, and now does Kevin Ellis Jr. actually have any damage to the front end as a result of that? I'm not spotting any, But we'll just have to see, because Robertson and Horston will have no problems in terms of trying to overtake a potentially damaged Kevin Ellis Jr. Oh, but Horston's been tagged around by John Robertson. What's going on in the final couple of laps of this race? Everything's just going to these drivers' heads at the moment. 30 seconds left on the clock, side by side between John Robertson and Jamie Moon. This is now the battle for third place, as Moon can't quite get the speed around the outside there, can't quite get the run, and now maybe a look to the inside for the hairpin, but no, he's just going to have to stay in line. But what craziness have we seen here in the final 2 laps of this event? They're on the Bentley straight, the back straight for the final time here in this one, as the clock will expire. Is there going to be a draft pass here for Jamie Moon? He might as well go for it to try and secure a podium here, which was looking like an outside shot a couple of laps ago, but now he might have an opportunity. There's the confirmation of the final lap here. Where is Sebastian Job? He's heading his way through Coram right now. I don't think there's quite going to be an opportunity for Moon to head his way through, unless there's a mistake from John Robertson. But there is Sebastian Job. He does it again. He gets the double race win here at Snetterton for round number 4 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup, Great Britain. Fantastic performance once again from your championship leader. That's how you do it.
You'd think he'd just finished last place with the expression on his face there. Never mind winning 2 races in an afternoon there. But yeah, great job from Sebastian. He done a sensational work again. Kevin Ellis Jr. fortuitous to find himself in that 2nd place. But we've got a car just driving across the grass there. Liam McNinch, you're going to have to serve a slowdown penalty on that one, I feel, as they come across the start and finish line. But yeah, all sorts of shenanigans happening then. Oh, he lost it on the exit of Bomb Hole, and then decided, rather than trying to come on at an awkward angle, just deciding, right, let's just drive across the grass here and get ourselves back onto track in a relatively safe manner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not harming anyone out there apart from the groundskeeper that tries to keep the grass in good order.
Oh, Jonathan Palmer weren't happy. He likes his grass immaculate, but there you go.
Absolutely. So that is race number 2 done here at the Snetterton 200 circuit. We have unofficial, I have to stress, unofficial race results, because I get the feeling there's going to be a lot of stewards' investigations after this race. Sebastian Job, of course, he should be fine in terms of the race win. He does the double here at Snetterton, but Kevin Ellis Jr. might not, pending stewards' investigation, hang on to that P2. But we'll have to see in the days following, and we'll get that news to you as we start the next event at Le Mans. But John Robertson gets himself onto the podium there. Fantastic event for him, picking up all the pieces of things happening ahead of him. Jamie Moon in P4, Blair Mann P5, Bart Horston P6 here today. Graham Carroll, after that late race instance, gets cycled back into P7. Simeon Lynch in P8, Fraser Williamson P9, and Jack Sedgwick, your reverse grid pole position sitter, in P10. He had that spin on the opening lap that put him all the way down there. Josh Thompson, again, another late race incident for him involving Jamie Fluke, gets put down in P11. Matt Emery P12, and like you said, Paul, if the man just doesn't have any luck at all, he's down in P13. That's Jamie Fluke. Again, it's such a shame for such a strong driver for these things to be happening to him, but it is what it is in sim racing and motorsports in general. Down in P13, and I guess if you wanted to, if you're superstitious, then P13 just kind of sums up Jamie Fluke's day in that aspect. But Isaac Price in P14, Lewis Goodway in P15, Matthew Dorrington P16, Craig Williams, Jordan Weeks, Thomas O'Leary, and Liam McNish, bringing things down to P20. And then you see those drivers that finished at the very back here today: Ryan Parkins, Nash Delzik, Martin, Kieran Harrison, Draj, and Webster round out your 26 cars here for race number 2. So what an enthralling last couple of laps there. Maybe not for the same reasons as we saw an enthralling last couple of laps for the previous 2 rounds, but exciting nonetheless, and a lot of drama.
Yeah, drama is the key word there. I mean, one man who didn't have any drama towards the end was Sebastian Job, but even involved with those that battle when he made his move, and Graham Carroll made his move on Jamie Fluke to start working the way through. that really kicked it all off, really. And Job followed his teammate, and he did exactly what you said, Connery. He followed his teammate through, and was able to take the advantage from that, and got the better run down the Bentley Straight on Graham Carroll. So definitely, Sebastian will be delighted with that, and he'll be delighted. He won't be delighted by the fact that Kevin Ellis Jr. was second behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are ready for a couple of interviews then. We'll bring the double race winner into the commentary booth. I'm interrupting his conversation. I do apologize there, Sebastian, but fantastic job there for today. Snetterton seems like it's a very comfortable track for you. Double race win. You gotta be happy, and that sets yourself up for the championship as well now.
Yeah, I mean, today went really well, so gotta be happy with that. I'm still not even that happy because the Super Cup yesterday didn't go too well, but it's nice to have the opportunity to bounce back quickly. And yeah, so pole and 2 wins is, you can't really do much better. So yeah, happy with that.
It seems like you were basically the only driver at the front of the field that was able to actually pull a gap on the drivers behind. You were able to still pull that gap, even considering the slipstream, and get yourself out of the slipstreaming distance as well. Is this track just one that really plays into your favor? Is this one you really enjoy, or is it just this speed has come out of nowhere?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know the track a couple months ago. I had to learn it for another series. But it was the at the end of the back straight, that left into a right is a very tricky corner, and I noticed early on that I was just gaining time in that corner. Like everywhere else is basically even. I think I was quite decent in turn 1 as well, but it's like one corner, and then if you get a 10th there, that makes everything else a lot easier, and then it kind of gives you some comfortability to take it easy and still be able to match what others are doing. Then if you really need to push, you can use that a little bit extra, take more of a risk, just if you've got one corner that's really good for you, and that was the case here, luckily. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the track, actually. I do prefer this layout than the longer one. So yeah, it's I don't know why I was quick here, but yeah, I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah, certainly not, as we will have a week's break, I believe, here for the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain, which will perhaps allow you to focus on your Super Cup a little bit more. But when we do come back here for the Carrera Cup Great Britain, we are going to be heading to Le Mans, which is our special event race, longer race, double points as well, and I doubt, as quick as you are, you'll be able to pull out the gap in terms of the getting out of the slipstream there, as you did here. So what's the strategy coming into that race?
Yeah, Le Mans is pure slipstream, so it's gonna be wait until the last lap and roll the dice and see who comes out on top, basically. As long as you're in that front 3, I'd say you're in with a shout of a win. If you're any further back than that, you probably going to struggle a bit, but yeah, I think everyone will be in a massive group, and luckily, at least, I know there were a couple crashes today, but in general, this series has been really good driving standards wise, in my opinion. So hopefully we'll be in a big group at Le Mans, and it will be quite exciting on the final lap.
Yeah, we're hoping for that as well. We just have to wait 2 weeks, though, instead of the regular 1 week in this series to see that happen. But, fantastic job here today, with the double race win. And we wish you the best of luck in your next couple of races as well, especially for the Super Cup.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Well, then, that was Sebastian Job, then, driver of the number 22 Red Bull Racing Esports car. Again, maximum points for this event. And, he only needs to do this maybe 1 or 2 more times, and he can just be crowned the champion already.
There's still a long way to go in this championship. Let's be honest about that. I mean, when you consider we've got the double points at Le Mans, and then we've got Donington National Circuit, Silverstone International, and Brands Hatch Grand Prix. This is by far not over yet. We're at the halfway point of the championship, so yeah, don't start giving him the crown already. It's a long way to go here.
It is. In racing, anything can happen. You can have a poor run of results in the middle of the season that makes the climax a little bit more exciting in the final couple of rounds. But we have another driver waiting for an interview. We've got Kevin Ellis Jr., part of Apex Racing Team, and Paul, you're standing by with Kevin.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, Kevin, I mean, wow. You try your best out there. You try to work your way forward, and ended up in P2. It's not a bad finish here today, but I'm sure you'll be thinking, like, what could have been here today?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to start off apologising to Graham for what happened on lap 21. You know, from my perspective, he missed the corner and was coming in at such a shallow angle that I didn't think he was going to make it. So I didn't want to go to the outside of him. So I just tried to get the cut back, and obviously he's trying his best to get stopped for the right-hander and just stopped right in front of me. And at that point, I had guys right behind me and I couldn't get stopped. So it was just a really bad situation there. It wasn't my intention to hit him. Obviously, I had a bit of a send in turn two, ended up in the grass, and just a bit managed to keep it off him. And then into the chicane there, things didn't really go the way I wanted to. I don't want to wreck someone out for P2. That's not what it's about. But yeah, I just got to kind of hope that the stewards see that as my fault. I'd like to think it was a racing incident, considering he missed the corner and I'm trying to keep it off him. So yeah, I mean, a double P2, I'm happy with it, but obviously Seb won both races again, so the gap to him increases, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
I mean, I've just pointed out to Connery, we're at the halfway point of the championship here. That, yeah, this isn't signed, sealed and delivered yet. There's still a lot of racing to go on. And with double points available at Le Mans, you've then got Donington National, Silverstone International, which I've not seen many races around there, and then Brands Hatch Grand Prix. I mean, those final 3 rounds of the championship, anything can happen around those events. So you never say never so far in this championship, as we see week on week.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's, you know, we're only halfway, but it's clear Seb has an advantage every single week, so we've got to do the best we can to keep the gap as small as possible. Obviously, with Le Mans coming up, I think it's something that everyone's got circled. I mean, anyone can win that race. It's just a case of positioning, and that race, raw pace, doesn't really come as much into it. So we've just got to hope that Le Mans we can get a couple strong results, close the gap. I know Seb's pretty strong at Brands, so the last round is going to be really tough if the championship does come down to that final round. So yeah, I mean, we're just going to keep on pushing. I mean, P2 in the championship is pretty good, but yeah, it's a bit too early, obviously, to count ourselves out. We've got to keep pushing, but yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure for the last half of the season.
But we have to just sort of look at that first half of the series. The level of intensity up in that front group of drivers, that 5, 6, 7 drivers there's no way you can make a mistake because you're just easily gobbled up, aren't you, here?
Yeah, there's just zero room for error here. I mean, it's the same. Obviously, the guys at the front of this are the same guys that are in Super Cup. So it's intense. It's crazy. You can't make a single mistake, and if you do, all of a sudden, as you say, you get swallowed up, and you've got 5 guys just sending it on you left, right, and centre. So yeah, I mean, the pressure's always on. There's never really any time to relax. To just take it easy. You've got to be at full intensity for the full 25 minutes of both races, and of course the 20 minutes of qualifying as well. It's non-stop action, and it's fun to take part in. Obviously, it's really exciting, but obviously when things happen like what happened with Graham, that's unfortunately one of the side effects of hard racing, is a bit of contact. And yeah, as I said earlier, I'm not too happy about that. I apologise to him again, but you know, it is what it is. It's close racing. I tried my best not to hit him, so that's all I can do.
Well, I would say enjoy the week off, but you've got a Super Cup race coming up in 6 days' time, so you've got the preparation for that. But all the best for next week and the rest of this championship.
Very much appreciated, guys. See you soon.
Oh, there we go. That was Kevin Ellis Jr. there, coming home P2 in both races here today. So, you know, if anything, he has been able to minimize the points lost to Sebastian Job in this one. But Sebastian's still in the best seat in the house as far as the championship goes. But that next round, Paul, at Le Mans, double points, that is an interesting predicament. Because if you're Sebastian Job and you have maybe a little bit of an error, you have a bad result there at Le Mans, then that is going to be exacerbated by the double points, especially if Kevin gets a good result. So that's kind of where the turning point could be in this season. That could be where things start to swing a little bit if Seb's not too careful.
Yeah, so just to explain to everyone, it's a 1:45-minute race, but we've got a 40-minute qualifying session before that. Because of the length of the track around there, you're talking, what, over a 4-minute lap. So they need that extra time to be able to get qualifying in. And of course, the intensity of qualifying will be ramped up because you've got that hard cut-off of that 40 minutes there. But yeah, 45-minute race, double points, one little error, say, through the Porsche curves, you've not got a lot of room around there. You're going to end up with damage, and before you know it, you're all the way back in the pits and ruin your luck in that race. So it's about keeping clean, it's about keeping in the slipstream there. Nobody will want to be at the front of that field until the last lap.
Yeah, it's going to be a game of chess at a very high speed, shall we say. It's kind of like NASCAR Super Speedway racing, where it's all about the positioning rather than the outright pace in terms of clear air. So that's going to be a very, very interesting race, and it's where teammates will certainly help as well a little bit, especially in that qualifying session. So we can expect more working together with Sebastian Job and Carroll, and of course amongst all the Apex guys as well, of Kevin S. Jr., Fluke, and Robertson, for example. So yeah, the qualifying is going to be interesting for that event. The race is going to be incredibly intriguing as well. I can't wait for it, but we have to wait for 2 weeks to have that happen. But I think our patience will be rewarded here, Paul.
It certainly will, and yeah, we've seen the level of intensity in this championship, and we've seen it again today around this traditional British circuit. We've seen how it can be in those tight circuits, but you get to Le Mans, that's a bit more of an open circuit, so we'll see plenty of action around there. And then that second half of the season, as we see Jack Sedgwick there, that right at the start of the race there with that incident. And you know, when we look at the circuits that are coming up, Silverstone with the international layout, I don't think I've ever seen a race around that track. It of course uses the international pit lane, so it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, it's going to be tremendous to watch, is that one.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. You know, the final run to the end of this season is going to be absolutely amazing. If it remains as close as we've seen it for the opening couple of rounds of this season, that's for certain. But that's all that we're going to have time for here today on the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain broadcast. I've been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the one, the only Mr. Paul Smith. In 2 weeks' time, we will head to our special event round. Across the channel in France, we head to Le Mans for our double points event. So you'll definitely want to mark that one in your calendar. But for today, we'll have to say goodbye.